.asp script, ASP files are also another language on its own. There are two different languages. Thank you. Now, previously I asked that I said that there are a lot of ways we can output information on our browser. One of the three kind of pop-up box that we have in JavaScript is the alert box, the confirm box, and the prompt box. Now, the alert function is used if you want to make sure information comes through to the user. That is, you want to alert something to the user to make sure they get some information first before they perform an operation. Then the confirm box also is used to verify or accept something. This value returns true or false. I will show you this now in my VS Code. Then the prompts. The prompts box is often used if you want the user to input a value before entering a page. So I'll show you this in my code now. Let me go to the charts. So someone is asking that the JavaScript and ASP perform similar functions or uses. Like I said earlier on, all programming languages perform the same operation, but different way of using it. For instance, yes, thank you, sir, Mr. Emmanuel. Yes, but they use different languages exactly. So if you want to use ASP, then there's a language we call .NET, which is for Microsoft. Yes, I think Microsoft is one that have the .NET, So you can it's a language for the backend. It's a backend language. So if you want to try using Microsoft languages, you can try the ASP.NET language. So you can use it to process your form, you can use it to perform many operations at the backend. But for JavaScript here, JavaScript at the backend, we use Node.js to perform operations there. So Node.js is a JavaScript. We use JavaScript at the backend using Node.js. Then for this ASP, we use .NET for its operation. We can as well compare it with PHP, other languages. A PHP file, we have a .php file. .php file is also a language too. It's also compared to JavaScript, but PHP is safe. It has a .php extension, while JavaScript has a .js extension. So using PHP at the backend, using this at the backend, we have the same functionalities, but different way of using it. We have different uses. Thank you. Now, let me show you how we can alert information on my browser. So I'm just going to open my VS Code. This is my VS Code now. I've just shown you that document.red is used to output content on the browser. We also have the alert box. Remember, I have a string, alert, welcome. So the JavaScript webinar. When you do this, remember this script.js file is already linked with my HTML file. When I check my file now, I should be able to say, welcome to the JavaScript webinar, alerted on the browser. Now let's see it in action. Now you can see this. You can see this. Let me refresh. Now you can see, welcome to the JavaScript webinar. Welcome to the JavaScript webinar. So this is how to alert information. Then you press OK, then you have this paragraph. Now, another way again, which you can output something in the content of the browser is by using. So I'm going to comment out this one by using the slash. You can see, to slash we comment this, it's not running. Then another way is using the confirm box that says, are you sure? Are you sure? Okay. Are you sure? Just a question. Are you sure? And let's see the result. This return a true or false value. Yes or no. That's what true or false means in JavaScript. So let's check it out. Now, when I load the page, are you sure? If I say okay, then that means I'm sure. If I say cancel, that means I'm not sure. Okay. So the last way of outputting code in my outputting code again is by using the prompt box. Prompt box is used to ask users for information. So I'm just going to comment this. Then I prompt my user to please enter your name. When I do this and check my browser, I should say, please enter your name. So let's see what we have. Let me just reload. Now you see this, please enter your name. When I enter my name, then I say, okay. Then it's been submitted, then that's all. So these are the ways you can output content to the browser. Then before I go, before I leave my VS Code screen, I'm supposed to show you how you can output things in the console. In the console of the browser. The console is one of the essential tools you must be able to work with as a developer. So let's do this. Console.log. So remember, I'm dealing with string. So string must be enclosed inside the double quote. So I want to type a string of letters. So I want to say console log. We are learning JavaScript. Now, when I check it out, nothing will be displayed in my browser except for the documents.write that we have here. Now, if I want to see what I've shown you now in my code, I'm just going to right click and inspect. And when you inspect, it's going to show you. Let me just bring this one up. So let me just zoom. Okay, yeah. I'm trying to zoom in the screen. Probably you can see it very well. No. Okay. Anyway, let me just see. You can see this. We are learning JavaScript. I've used console.log. So I have the elements, the console. So the console tab is what I'm using to output my content to the browser. The console is very useful for debugging, especially. If you have any error in your code, the error will be displayed in the console here. Then you can now just check your lines of code and check it out. For instance, this line of code is located in script.js, line 7. When I go to line 7 of my code, I'm going to find this particular code here. Now let's go back to my VS Code. Line 7, you can see, line 7, I have console.log this. So that is that. So I'll be back to my slide again. So it's an example of JavaScript. I will show us how I can use JavaScript to manipulate the content of this web page. Now, I'm going to have h1 tag in my example file. This is a title. Now, let's check it out. This is a title. Now, I will go to my example.html and type h1 and say, this is my title. Now, when I have this, I can just, okay, let me just leave it there. Now, I'm using this external style sheet. Then, all this, I don't need them again. I don't need the document.write again. Now, I'm just going to declare a variable as you have seen in the, example here. I declared a variable called title. So I've grabbed it from the DOM, which I'm going to show you how to use the DOM. So I want to type just the h1 tag. So I'll just use the document.query selector, then select the h1 tag. Then I perform my manipulation. Now let's check it out. Let's check it out. So I will declare my variable name as title. Any name I like, I will use it. But the name that is conventional to my code. So documents.query selector. Then I want the h1 tag. I want the h1 tag, but h1 is what I'm target. This is h1 tag there, nothing else. So go to the h1 tag, then I want the title.inner HTML. I want it to change its content dynamically to something else. I can just use the ladder back down as the name of this. The ladder back down. Now, there's no space. Now, let's check it out and see the result. When I check my browser now, instead of me saying this is my title, or before I do that, let me just comment this and put my browser for you to see what we have already. See, this is my title, is what I have in my browser. Now, when I go to my JavaScript code and then change things, I'm going to manipulate this by changing the title to be the ladder back down. Now, when I check my browser, I should have the ladder back down. You can see the magic. Wow, that is the beautiful things JavaScript can do for you. It can change content dynamically without going to your HTML file and type this there. For me to confirm this, let's go to my VS Code and check the H1 elements and see what. Look at the H1 elements. Can you see what is here? This is my title. Now, the H1 element is now showing us what? It's showing us the ladder back down. You can see that JavaScript can be found to learn. Good. So I will go back to my slides and show you some examples again. You can also add two numbers using JavaScript. We can add numbers using the prompts. Then to just sum, okay, I declare a variable num1, num2, and sum. So the num1 was stored as prompt value that I showed us that you can use to collect users information. Enter your first number. Then the num2 says enter your second number. Now the sum now was stored as a parseInt. ParseInt is used to convert a string to a number in JavaScript. So parseInt num1 plus parseInt num2. Then you alert sum equals to sum. So let's just see what is happening here so that you can see there is an action. So I will go to my VS Code. Let's add two numbers together. So I'm going to my VS Code. So I will just go to declare a variable that says variable num1. Num1 is saved as a prompt, but I want to use the prompts in my code. I'm now saving it as a num1. So prompt one telling us that we should enter first number. Enter first number. So how you can use JavaScript to add two numbers together. Then num2. So I have a num2, like the second number. It can be any name you like, but num2 looks conventional. So num2, I'm going to prompt enter second number. Now when I so I want to store the result again. So the sum of num1 and num2, sum variable num sum equals to. Now I want to add num1 plus num2 together. Anything else. So, but users can enter letters like A, B, C. No, just numbers are not a number. But to avoid all this kind of thing, let me just put parse int. Parse int is a function to convert a number to string, a string to a number rather. So I'm trying num1 dot value as the value of the num1. Then I had it together with parse int the value of the num2. So anything the user inputs inside the prompt plus anything user that I'm just going to alert, or I can just write it on the web page. I can just do it here. I can change the HTML here. I can change it to let's do some manipulation again. I will change the results to sum. So I can say sum equals to then plus sum equals to plus sum. Now this sum here that I have here is going to output the result I have here. Then this sum you are seeing here is just to show us the sum of the two numbers. So I've written a simple lines of code to show us how we can add two numbers together. So let me see what we are going to get. So I'll open my browser and let's test it out. Now I'm just going to reload this web page. Now the web page, oh sorry. So now enter first number. So I'm going to enter the number 10. Okay. Enter second number 10. Now when I press OK, I have not a number because there is a problem with the code. So what will I have to do back is that was not a number means that was this result is not a number. So let's see what we've done wrong. Okay. Sorry. We share this code. Now I'm having num1 dot value here. This is not a form, so we don't need the value. It's not a form. So when I check it again, now let's see what I'm going to get now. Now enter first number. The first number is 10. Second number is 10. It's not a number. We have an issue. So let's see what is happening in our code again. First ends num1. Then sum is equals to this. Okay. So let me just use alerts and see what I'm going to get now. Console.log. Let's debug some things here. Console.log is used for debugging. Console.log, then num1. Let me see what the num1 is telling us. Okay, it worked for you. Wow, thank you. It worked for you. Yeah, there's a problem. There's something not working here. You know, when you're writing the JavaScript code, you have to be very careful. There's something not working here. So we're just trying to, so let's see. If it's working for you, that's fine. That's fine. Let me see. Pass ends num1, num2. So what is the error here? Let's check it out. So I'll open my developer tools. So let's say now this is the console. So when I enter num1, let's see, I have 13, which is for correct, it's working. So why is it not working for us here? So I'm just going to alert. Let me just alert num1 plus num2. So I'll remove this code and I'll remove this. And let's see what we have. So let's check it out again. We have 10, 10, 10, 10. Wow, because it's a string. We go back again. So that's how JavaScript is. That's what it's telling us, that we are adding two strings together because we didn't pass it to us to a number. So okay. Now let's see it again. I want to get 20. Then still have 10, 10. Put something wrong there. Num1, pass ends num1, okay. Just a minute, please. Let me just try to. Okay. I know what is happening. Pass ends. Pass ends is used to convert string to number. Pass ends. This should work. So I'm trying to add num1 and num together to alert the sum for us. So, wow. Let's see what we have again. Now, 10, 10, 10, 10, Then we have 20. Correct. Let's do it again. 10. 10. We have 20. Now, what I want to do is that I want to put the 20 here. I want to add the 20 here. This thing should change to sum equals to 20. Now, let's see if that will work fine. That was my plan before. So, title.inner HTML. I'm just going to come here and change it to sum equals to then plus sum. Now let's see. Let's see the results. Let's see the results. That should work perfectly fine for us now. So let me just refresh the page. Now let me refresh the page. Now enter first number. 10. 10. Sum equals to 20. Correct. Now we can proceed with the slides. Before I go to the slide, let me repeat the step I'm trying to do here. The website has the ladder background as its contents in the H1. Now I've now added two numbers together by just converting the numbers that I enter here into an integer. Integer means number. We convert string because the text inside this prompt can be a text. So we convert it to a number by using the parseInt function. So we have num1 and number2. Now I now have a variable called sum. So the sum is telling us that what we want to add num1 here and num2 together. Any number I enter here, I'm going to get the results here. So this result is being stored as sum. Now I now came down to my code and I just use the sum here. This text you are seeing here is a string that is having sum. If you check the browser, sum, then the result is 20. So another example is here again where we can manipulate our elements using the li. I will show us this in the webinar practical to save time. Now, how can you access elements in the DOM? We can use the get elements name by class name method. We can also use the get elements by ID. You know, we've learned about class name and ID in the CSS. So this is class name, which you can use to get elements in our code. We can also use the get elements by ID to get elements from our HTML code. We can also use the tag name called get elements by tag name. So 1, 2, 3. Then the last one we have is the query selector. The query selector is what I use to target my elements in my code. If you check what I've done here in my VS code, you can see I've used query selector here. Can you see it? Query selector. So this is where this gives me privilege or access to get the H1 elements here. So this is how the document object model works. We have the documents, the HTML that contains the head, the body. Inside the head, we have the title tag. Inside the body, we have different kind of tags, H1 scripts. Then it can be things like this. So this is how the document object model works. The document is the root element of the web page. So document dot anything you want to have here, then you get access to it using the document dot either get elements by ID or get elements by class name or get elements by tag name. So this is an example of how to use class name. We just say document dot get elements by class name, then the class of the name, then here now, the class name here is bold, B-O-L-D. Now it has been changed, so ladder back down. Using the document that's get elements by class name. Also, we can use the elements by ID followed by the ID attributes, which we can also do the same thing. We have the ID here, which is called bold. Then in my JavaScript code, I've used the ID to target the elements. Like I said, the ID and the CSS are very useful for manipulation in JavaScript files. So you can also use the tag name to access the DOM elements. Tag name is just by selecting the tag name. The B is a tag name. I'll just use the B here, tag name, which is the name of the tag, B. It can be H1, it can be H2, it can be P, it can be D. Any tag name you might want to use. Then this element will change its contents from map foundation to ladder back down. Now, the last thing we have to look at before we go is the dev tools. I've shown us how the console look like now. So the dev tools is used for debugging. So we have the console tab, the elements tab. So I'm going to show you us now in my browser. So to access the dev tools, you right click on your browser and inspect. So we have a lot of elements here. Then console, the sources. So I won't go here because we're not into the backend part of the websites, but let's just look at the elements and the console. So the element is what is contained in our element. For example, the element is having H1 sum equals to 20. You can see it here. That's what I have in my browser too. Then the console is used to output contents in our developer too. So this way there's an error in your code, you get the error here. Thank you very much. That will be the end of this presentation. We'll be back after the 15 minutes break to start our webinar practical that says we should how to add interactivity to our 3-page websites. Now, questions before we go for the 15 minutes break. Then we'll be back after then start coding.